often think, what if I hadn't just gotten behind the wheel? It was supposed to be a routine duty. I had been working as a trucker for almost 9 years and knew the trails better than I knew my own apartment. It wasn't the romance of the road or the passion for solitude, it was a way of survival. The money was good, the schedule was free, and no one was standing over his soul. But the road always takes something away. Slowly, imperceptibly. Sleep first, then a normal diet, then friends, then the feeling of time. And one day, she takes everything. The flight I'm going to tell you about started without any worries. I needed to deliver construction materials to one of the warehouses about 3 states away from my current location. The order was urgent, and the payment was good. I booted up at dawn, checked the tire pressure, refilled the oil, and hit the highway before the city even woke up. The car, my old Kenworth, purred steadily. The radio picked up my favorite station, and everything seemed as usual. The first part of the journey was quiet. A few small towns, occasional overtaking on the highway, a gas station with cold coffee and greasy sandwiches. By lunchtime, I had crossed the border into the next state and was heading deeper into an area I only knew by hearsay, the Southern Loop, as the drivers called it. A section of a long, straight highway where there are no cities, motels, or communications. Only the road, the dust, and the occasional gas station with dilapidated toilets. I arrived at the site around 4 in the afternoon. Then it's a straight line for 100 miles ahead, and there are no forks. I stopped at the last gas station before the deserted stretch to fill up the tank, go to the toilet, and stretch out. The place was half empty. A couple of pickup trucks, a dirty van, and an elderly couple drinking lemonade from plastic cups. It was quiet inside the gas station. The salesman, thin and always looking out the window, almost without looking up, sold me an energy drink and shook his head when I told him where I was going. "Don't drive at night," he said. "Turn north, maybe 100 miles more, but safer." I chuckled. This is a typical local folklore. I've heard hundreds of such conversations. Yes, it happens that someone disappears on the tracks. But the reason is almost always the same. Fatigue, alcohol, technology. Not ghosts, not a place of power, as they say on the forums, but banal gouging. I thanked him and left without listening any further. It was already closer to 5 when I got back on the highway. The highway stretched sideways like a taut string, with dry fields and dead trees on the sides. The asphalt was gray-black, with sparse tire tracks and markings that had not been updated for a long time. The sun was slowly sinking. I turned on the high beam. Although it was still visible, I just felt so much calmer. The road did not change hour after hour. The landscape seemed to be stuck in the same frame, the same broken signs, the same road posts. Sometimes it felt like I was driving through the same turns, even though there were no turns at all on the map. I wasn't worried. Fatigue doesn't do that either. Sometimes it happened that I caught myself driving for half an hour with my eyes closed. My brain just switched to autopilot. It was getting dark by 8. There was a downed coyote lying on the road in front of me. Fresh. The skin was ripped open, the body was spread out, the eyes were half open. I braked and drove around. For some reason, I couldn't take my eyes off this corpse. He seemed to be too alive. But again, it's just nerves. It's just a night. It's just a highway. I kept driving until I saw the first abandoned van. He was standing in the middle of the road, as if he had been put there on purpose. The lights were off, the cabin was open, and the interior was empty. I stopped, got out, and looked around, as if people had just walked out and left, abandoning everything. There was an old cap and a pack of cigarettes on the seat. There are 2 cigarette butts in the ashtray. The cigarettes were warm. I checked the hood. The engine was already cold. It was weird. I got back in the cab, backed up a bit, drove around, and drove on. There's another one a mile away. An abandoned sedan with the door torn out. There are documents scattered on the asphalt, a backpack, and... I almost didn't believe it, a child's doll with a severed arm. I didn't touch anything. I just drove slower. His hands began to shake. I checked the GPS. He hung up. I've been showing the same point for the last 20 minutes. I rebooted it, but the signal never recovered. There was no connection either. I turned on the emergency beacon and tried to catch at least one radio station. 0. Just a hiss. I decided to stop, exhale, and put my thoughts in order. I stopped at a roadside exit, the only one that had been there in recent hours. There was an untitled, lopsided, rusty sign on the side of the road. I turned off the engine, turned off the headlights. The darkness squeezed the cabin like concrete. 10 minutes passed. I heard something click in the trailer. It was as if someone had pulled the door. I took the flashlight and went out. He walked over to the trailer. No one. Everything is closed. The seal is in place, but there were footprints on the ground. Not animals. Footwear. It's ordinary but very small. It's like a nursery. I walked along the highway with a flashlight, examining the curb. In the distance, in the dust, I noticed a tiny note stapled to a post. The paper was yellowed, but the text was clear. If you're reading this, you've already made a mistake. Don't stop. Never slow down. No one is coming home here. I froze, staring at this note, feeling my heart pounding in my chest, no longer from fatigue, but from something else, something that had not yet been named. The paper was shaking in my hand from the faint wind, but I myself stood rooted to the spot. It could have been someone's stupid prank. It could have been. But those footprints by the trailer, the scattered things on the road, the dead coyote, and the cars, everything formed a chain that I absolutely did not like. I took a look at the highway. Absolute silence, not a single headlight, not a single sound. Only my truck stood, as if frozen in the moment. I felt a strange, nasty feeling, as if someone was watching from afar. I didn't move, didn't look back, just walked slowly back, trying not to make any sudden movements. The flashlight was shaking in his hand. He climbed into the cab, slammed the door, and locked all the locks. The engine started the first time, as if he also felt that he needed to get out. I stepped on the gas and drove back to the highway. I was driving fast, even too fast. The trailer rocked, the wheels caught every pothole, but I didn't slow down. I didn't even turn on the headlights, not because I'd forgotten, but because the light suddenly seemed superfluous, as if it let me know where I was. After a couple miles, the road got weird again. The same turn 3 times. I remembered it for sure, from the broken bump, from the rusty sign, from the flattened tin can by the curb. I was getting angry. Not to be scared, but to be angry. I wasn't a beginner, I wasn't paranoid. But the road was playing with me. Or something was happening, not mysticism, no, but someone was here, someone was intentionally doing something. I stopped once more, just for a little while. This time, he stood in the middle of the highway, turned on the emergency light, got out, and went to the trailer. I wanted to make sure that everything was in order with the cargo. The trailer door was closed. The seal is intact, but here's the smell. It smelled of meat, spoiled. I looked around again. Empty. Just me and the night track. Suddenly, I noticed a car parked about 100 meters down the highway. She wasn't there when I came out. It was some kind of old sedan. The headlights were off. The silhouette was barely discernible. I immediately went back to the cabin. He started up, turned on the headlights, pointed the light at that sedan. But he wasn't there. Not a car, nothing. Just an empty highway. And then I realized that someone was parking these cars, someone was cleaning them, and doing it quickly. And he or they are somewhere nearby. For the first time in a long time, I wanted to talk to someone. I took out my walkie-talkie, switched to the general band, and said, "This is Trucker 88, heading along the southern loop in the area between the last 2 gas stations. Is anyone in touch?" A hiss. Emptiness. I repeat, 88th, I'm on the southern highway. I need a connection, please respond. A second later, a hoarse voice comes over the speaker. Turn around. Turn around before it's too late. I pressed the radio to my ear. Who's that? Silence. Not a single sound. No hissing, no static. Just absolute measured silence. I threw the radio on the seat and accelerated. My heart was pounding and my palms were wet. At one point, it even seemed to me that the highway was beginning to disappear. Not in a mystical sense, but literally. The markings were fading. The road signs were rotting before my eyes. The asphalt was covered with cracks and dirt, as if no one had used this section for decades. And then there's the light. I saw lights ahead. A roadside cafe, or something like that. A low building with a neon sign. The inscription is blurred, but it is visible. They are working. There are no cars at the entrance, but the lights are on. That's all I needed. I pulled off the highway and parked in the parking lot in front of the entrance. He turned off the engine. I sat for a minute. Then he went out. The air was stagnant, warm, and smelled of overheated asphalt and something else like fried butter mixed with dust and sweat. I went inside. The cafe was almost empty. A couple of tables, peeling walls, cheap tiles on the floor. A middle-aged woman was standing behind the counter. She looked at me as if she was waiting. "Got any coffee?" I asked. "Only instant," she replied. "Will it go?" "That's fine." I sat at a table by the window with my back to the highway. I wanted to see everything. After a minute, she placed a plastic cup with something dark and bitter in front of me. I took a sip. It wasn't coffee, it was punishment. "What's the matter with the road?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, as if thinking out loud, "The road here is strange. Not everyone should follow it. I saw the cars. Abandoned. Several. Notes. People. I saw it. And you're not the first." I looked at her. She didn't look scared. She spoke calmly, even too calmly, as if she knew what I was going to ask next. "Where do they go?" She put a napkin on the table. There are handwritten words on it. No one took them away. They just stopped driving. I didn't know what to say. I looked at her blank stare, and I suddenly felt more uncomfortable than I had in all my time on the track, because there was no fear in her eyes. It was addictive, as if she'd seen it before, and more than once. I stared at this napkin, read the inscription one more time, as if hoping that it would change. They just stopped driving. It would seem that these are ordinary words, nothing supernatural, but they cut into me like a rusty nail. We stopped driving. People, cars, destinies disappeared not in smoke or fire, not in a loud crash, but in silence. They just stopped moving. They stopped being. It was as if the road itself was pumping something important out of them. Not the soul, not life, and the will to go on. "How long have you been working here?" I asked, and I didn't understand why. The woman smiled a little and looked out the window, as if there was an answer behind the glass. "I don't work here. I just stayed." I noticed that she had caked dirt under the nail of her left hand, as if she had been digging with her hands before. Her hands were not those of a waiter, but of a mechanic, or worse, someone who often hides something. Don't think about it, I didn't judge. I just started noticing. Too carefully. I finished my stinky coffee, got up, put the bill on the table, and headed for the exit. She didn't ask, didn't get back, didn't say, "Come back again." She just nodded, as if saying goodbye not to me, but to the last moment when I was safe. There wasn't even a light wind outside anymore. Everything seemed to freeze. The truck was standing just as I left it. But what's changed is that someone ran a finger through the dust on the back window of my truck. Don't stop. Not escape. Not run. Not danger is near. But clearly, do not stop. Neither a request nor a warning is a command. And the scariest thing is that I felt ready to do it. I jumped in the cab, hit the ignition, and pulled back onto the highway. It was well past midnight on the clock. A woman with the hands of a mechanic and the eyes of a witness remained behind. And I was alone again, the headlights picking out the dead road from the darkness, like a knife shining in the flesh of the night. After a couple of miles, again, the same car, the same silhouette. I didn't slow down this time. I flew past, looking straight ahead, without slowing down. And then, for a few seconds, I saw inside. There was a man there. I was driving. He didn't look at the road or at me. He was looking out the windshield, as if there was a screen there, and he was watching something that I didn't understand. And then there's that looping segment again. The same potholes, the same markup. Only now I was going even faster. Not even to leave, just to stay on the move. Have you ever felt that if you stop, you won't fall asleep, you won't take a break, but you'll just stay? Forever? That's exactly what I felt. The speedometer was jumping on the edge, and I could barely make out what was going on ahead when the headlights illuminated another body. Not a human being, not an animal. And the truck. I'm washing. My truck. The same model. The same numbers. And the trailer, even the scratch on the side matched. I slowed down. Not to the end, I just turned off the gas. The car was parked on the side of the road. The headlights were off. The cabin is empty. I caught up with her. The rear window was smashed. And again, dust. And the inscription. But now, look ahead. It pierced me. Not with fear, but with something else. Almost physical. It was as if someone had put a thought in his head loud, oppressive, like a migraine. Don't go out. I hit the gas again. And he drove on. 10 minutes later, or 30, I don't know anymore, I saw the light. Huge, yellow, shimmering. Roadside parking. Refill. There were cars there. People. Alive, real, swarming, talking, screaming, smelling of gasoline, smelling of cheap food. I turned in there, got out, and for the first time in all this time, I heard a noise. Not the emptiness of a track, not the sounds of the engine, not the crunching underfoot, and the real noise of life. Conversations, the beeping of speakers, the clatter of coffee machine lids. I stood at the gas station, like I was stranded. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw that I had a black eye. It wasn't there before, and there's an abrasion on his neck. The long one, like a seatbelt. Except that, I always drive without him. I stayed at that gas station until morning. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't go any further. Every time I approached the truck, something inside seemed to start cracking. Not externally, but internally. It was as if the brain refused to accept movement. It was as if my body remembered something I hadn't realized yet. I tried to tell one of the drivers that I had met my own truck at night, with broken glass and seatbelt marks on my body. He looked at me like I was a homeless man who'd been given the wrong dose. He shrugged his shoulders and told me to rest and drink some water. And he disappeared into the stream of cars, which were becoming more numerous. But now I realized I'm not going anywhere. I sat down at a table in a roadside diner and bought a coffee. Bitter just like then. And when the girl with the slanting bangs handed it to me, I noticed the same dirt under her nail. It was black and ingrained, as if she was hiding something too. I asked, "Have you been here long?" She didn't answer. I just looked out the window, like the one from the last gas station. And suddenly I realized these are not different gas stations. They were one and the same. Only the road led to them from different directions. It's like I've entered a loop where everything repeats but shifts a little. Not mystically. It's just like in life, when you make the same mistakes with the same people in the same situations, but you think that everything is new. I went outside. The truck was parked. The same one. Only now there was no inscription on the rear window. Nothing at all. Clear. And then I sat inside. He fastened his belt. He started the engine. He looked ahead. I just sat there and watched the morning spread across the asphalt. I wanted to go, but he couldn't, because I finally remembered. I was already on my way. That night. Road. Coffee. Refill. The same woman. The same inscription. But then, I went out anyway. I wanted to inspect the truck, and he crossed the road. I was hit by a car, or a truck, or I don't remember myself. There was a blow, light, scream, and then refueling again. More coffee, the road again. I'm not a ghost, not dead. It's getting worse. I am the one who has forgotten that I am dead. But not because of mysticism, not because of karma, not because of the vicious circle of hell. It's just because the brain refused to accept it. My mind decided that it was easier to keep going than to admit that it had all ended on that damn strip of asphalt at 3 in the morning. And now, I'm here. Not in hell. Not in oblivion. And in a logical, infinitely real, absolutely dead-end thought, you didn't make it. And every time I come back, I get behind the wheel every time. I drink this coffee every time. Every time I see this inscription on the glass. With each cycle, there are fewer details. More and more bluntness. And at some point, I'll stop even trying to get out. I'll stop drinking coffee. I'll stop asking questions. I'll just stay behind the wheel, staring at the road like everyone I've met at night, who looked into the glass as if into a screen. They weren't weird. They weren't ghosts. They were me. Each of them is a driver who once did not make it, could not accept it. And now you're listening to me. You're reading. Maybe you even drove along this highway. Maybe you saw me too, or someone like that. You just imagined it. After all, we were all just driving.